Medic!
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Medic Up podcast. This week is the final week of the recent Paramedic Graduate, or whatever I've been calling it for week to week. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to these guys and girls as they share their experiences from Paramedic School up through their first couple of years in the career field. This week, we're pretty lucky. We had Shawn stop by. He came by the Medic Up studios. He talked about being pretty much a baby medic who actually has a paramedic card in his pocket, and he's got to be careful with it because the ink is still pretty wet on that thing. And this guy literally walked down the aisle to graduate 100 days before recording this episode. This is probably one of my favorite episodes to date, which is mostly due to how open Shawn is and how sincere he is about his past life experiences, his medic school experience, and the job experience and what he expects to get out of it. I have no doubt how far this guy is going to go, because you can tell he's willing to put the effort into it to get a lot out of it. And if you're a student listening to this, whether you just started or you're partway through your EMT or your medic program, I really think you can relate to a lot of things that Shawn talks about, being away from his family, the time commitment, the stress, and just wanting to do a good job and then, beginning to learn as much as he possibly can once that initial education's done. So, guys, give it a listen. Thank you all for listening. We passed 1,000 downloads this past week, which is like 999 more than I thought I would ever get. So if you guys keep listening, I'll keep creating. You guys feel free to contact Medic Up either by leaving a comment here through the website, or you guys can search us on Facebook at medic.up.podcast and leave us a Facebook message, post on our feed, send us a PM or something like that with what you want to hear or who you want to hear, and we'll do our best to get them on. So guys, again, thanks for listening, and here's Shawn. So if you give us as much background demo on yourself as you want to.
All right. Well, my name's Shawn White. I've been married for 15 years to the same person. I have two children, 9 and 6 years old. I work for a busy EMS system in the upstate of South Carolina. A recent graduate of the paramedic program here at Greenville Technical College.
In 2017, right?
2017. And so I've been basically operating as a paramedic for about right at 3 months.
3 months. So, and if people have been following along with the project, the basis of this is they've been my graduates from my cohorts, and I can't claim you.
Right.
Sadly, I can't claim you because I was gone. I had left the college. I had went back to the county as a training officer, and but now I'm back to the college. But you're the baby graduate, the baby medic, and the perspective is what I'm looking for. So,
well, I mean, I did come to you a lot for advice and pointers, and because you had a lot of experience with the way things went here, so
right.
Try to get all the input that I could get.
And I'm always around. I always appreciate it. No problem. I always give out that free advice. So, what brought you to EMS?
What brought me to EMS? Well, honestly, I started out as a driver for a convalescent service, just driving the wheelchair bus. I fell into that role because a good friend of mine that I grew up with recommended me. He's like, hey, man, you've been looking for a job and just putting food on the table. So I fell into that driver spot.
What were you doing before?
Construction. I did tile work for about 7 years.
Tile work and nothing, no ties to EMS, public safety, fire, police, nothing.
Nothing.
Laying tile. And then somebody said, go drive the ambulance.
Making good money, and then the bottom fell out of the economy, and I needed a place to work. The construction just really wasn't there, and my buddy was looking out for me. He's like, hey, they need a driver. You have no experience right now in this field. Come on over. So I did. Started driving, did that for about a year. One thing led to another. I was like, hey, I need to get certified as an EMT.
What's the next step, right?
Yeah, I gotta take that next step. The people that I was working for were very generous and, gave me all the encouragement to go do that. So I did. Went to EMT school. In 2011, I believe. Dr. Bill Markley.
All right. Good deal.
And so he was my instructor. Went through that. Worked for about, I guess, 5 or 6 years in the convalescence, not 911 service. And I had my eye on medic, but I wasn't quite convinced that that's what I wanted to do yet. I knew there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of stuff that goes along with it, a lot of training, a lot of dedication. And more than anything, I realized that if you want to be a medic, you got to want it.
Right.
And I wasn't convinced that I wanted that during that time period.
When you were, and not to downplay anybody, but when you were working for convalescent services, were you like, this is good enough, or I wish I could break into the 911 end, and the 911 end in this area is only as a medic, or was it stuff like that? Or
I mean, I whenever I got my EMT, like I was really wanting to get into 911.
Okay.
But at the time, the service that I wanted to work for, which I work for currently now, you couldn't get a call back from those guys.
Especially as an EMT.
Especially as an EMT. Right. They only hired a select few, and they were at the top of the game.
Mostly intermediates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
right.
So you had to be had a lot of experience, and they, know you, different things, requirements. And I tried 2 or 3 times to get on with the job that I have now. Mm-hmm. It just didn't open itself up. And, as soon as the very first callback that I got for the place where I work now, I jumped on it because I wanted my foot in the door. That's where I wanted to be because of the reputation alone.
All right, we're going to come back to that, but we'll get there. Well, you know what? Before we get to the school stuff, you got a job at that service, and you got a job as OST.
Right, yeah. Right, I started off just stocking trucks.
Operational support technician in our logistics department, or the logistics department of EMS. And what were you there? You were there probably about a year?
Right at a year.
Yeah. Right at a year, because I remember the day that you got the full-time spot, which was 4 or 5 days before paramedic school.
Yeah.
And I remember a conversation that took place in logistics where, what did I tell you? What was my free advice?
I think it was along the lines of, have you lost your mind?
And I said, probably not the best idea in the world to work a full-time EMT job at this service while you're going to paramedic school.
I'll say it now. You were absolutely right. It was very, very high stress.
And time-consuming.
Absolutely.
Time-consuming. So, all right, we're going to hit some more of that in a little while.
Okay.
But, so EMT school, I would think being exposed to ambulance operations prior to that, it was probably a breeze. You rolled through 200 plus hours with no problem, and you worked. So that 5 years, what do you think you gained from it? Do you think you gained anything from it, or was it just like, I guess I get a lot of people say, well, granny transfers, what am I really getting out of it? Well, I got out of third service transfers. When I did that, I got out of it. I learned assessment. I learned lab values as an EMT, because again, back in the day before electronic medical records, they would give you the big chart from the nursing home, and then I had a 45-minute trip to whatever doctor's office or outpatient, whatever, and I would read through it and be like, oh, great. And over time, I understood what lab values were, what was high, what was low. I'd go home, I'd look them up, I'd look at my patient. I would, I wouldn't just sit in the back of the truck. I would actually do a physical assessment. I would take blood pressures and, do what you were supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and I've said this, especially looking back on it now, I learned how to interact with patients, something that you can't be taught in the classroom.
Right.
I learned how to take a blood pressure bumping down the road. I learned how to just communicate with people, see that, we learn what the normal values are on blood pressure, pulse, respirations, and seeing things that on your, take for example, dialysis patients, seeing things that's way outside of normal, but it's normal for them, and being able to recognize, I think it started me being able to recognize sick versus non-sick.
Right, absolutely.
Navigation, the way around the city, how the ambulance, like you said, operations, how it works, what buttons do what, how the maps work, it's crucial experience that you really can't get
with a lot lower stress.
Exactly. Because, I mean, you're using some skills. You're not using the vast toolbox, every tool in there.
Right.
But you're using things that's going to get you experience and get you used to it before it's in a high stress, like do
Absolutely.
it right now kind of thing.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So you make the decision. It's time to pull the trigger. I want to become a paramedic.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So you end up here at Greenville Technical College, and you're off and running. First semester paramedic. What you made it through? You just graduated. How well do you think, and not the school itself, but the content, the curriculum, how well do you think it prepared you for your first day in ALS?
I believe wholeheartedly that it gives you what you need to be successful to start to grow off of. Mm-hmm. I feel like the material was adequate and maybe even more than what you really need, because some of the stuff that you learned during medic school, you're not going to use every single bit of that. Like, you're not going to be able to recognize a lot of that when you first start out. Obviously, I don't.
Right.
I think it's stuff that you need to know. I think it's a good foundation. Like, we talk about whenever you come out of school, you're an entry-level paramedic.
Entry-level paramedic. You took the national certification exam, which, again, when you look percentage-wise, you're required to understand 75% of the job. As it's healthcare. It's a high reliability organization. It's is 75% good enough? Or
that's a starting place.
It's the tip of the iceberg.
This field is not a field that you can get into and expect to like pass that test, check that box, and you're done.
Right.
Like you're going to have to continue to learn. You're going to have to continue to learn things that you don't think you're going to need, because that's when you're going to go out to somebody's house and you're going to see that and you're going to be like, you're either going to have no idea what in the world's going on, or you're going to remember that article you read 3 months ago that has nothing to do with anything you were seeing at that time, but you remember. It just jogs you at that last second about, hey, I've seen this. I recognize this. I read about this. I learned about this.
Right.
And it's not your basic curriculum, not stuff that,
It's exposure and experience.
Exactly.
Right. It's being exposed and it's experiencing. And like I said, I say it a lot, that it might not be the best way to learn in EMS, but unfortunately, you learned in EMS from getting burned.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not talking about crazy sentinel event clinical errors that are career ending. I'm talking about, you end up off a call, you self-reflect and go, man, I could have done a lot better. Or, I did the patient handoff and the doc said, oh, well, this is that. And it's like, man, why did I not even think of that?
That's funny. It's funny you said that, because like in our medic class, I was a big proponent of BGLs. Like, no matter what scenario we were doing, no matter what it related to, I was asking, what's a BGL? It's one of the first things I always ask, and I carry that over to every patient right now that I transport. I try to check a BGL with every single one of them. Diabetic, not diabetic, doesn't matter to me. I want a BGL.
It's a vital sign.
It absolutely is, and it'll make or break you a lot of times. I got burnt one time on not taking a BGL, and it was a problem. So I ask every single time I go ahead and get that BGL, no matter what it is, because you don't want to get to the hospital and, well, you got this patient who's got pneumonia and got all these things, and you're thinking paramedic, let me drop some kind of medication at it, throw some medicine at it, and then get to the hospital and they got a BGL of 26 or something, Right.
I could have fixed that a half hour ago.
Right, absolutely. Don't get burnt by something like a BGL.
So what you kind of said a little bit before, what didn't paramedic school prepare you for in the job?
What didn't it? I mean, there's still issues with, operation wise. I feel like certain things that maybe you can't even learn it in medic school. I don't know. Maybe the only way you can learn it is experience.
Right.
But report writing, we didn't focus in detail a lot. We wrote reports. We wrote a ton of reports, but I don't know that they're to the same degree that you're required to write it when you go work on a truck,
Right.
Yeah, it gets you through school. You get the concept of you got to put your good history, your allergies, blah, 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 blah. But you don't understand fully that concept until you have the potential to go to court and have to testify on what's in that report.
It's definitely a gap. And I rack my brain trying to figure out how much extra time to devote in lab, in lecture, during school to try and bridge that gap a little bit. 6 years and I still don't have a good answer. And I know it's definitely a thing that holds the new paramedic back locally, because the preceptors will be like, oh my gosh, your charts aren't that great. And I'm like, well, they didn't do a lot, or we didn't focus as much as we did on that versus making sure they understand how to treat dysrhythmias or...
Absolutely. And you can, like you said, that's something that you can teach, you can grow, and you're going to develop your own style through time that I've seen. I was fortunate in that I worked for an emergent service before, like you said, while I was going through medic school. So I had amazing preceptors. I had amazing medics that I got to work with, and I could ask them questions the whole time. So It wasn't just that I was getting that learning experience in a classroom. I was applying it on the streets every day.
And getting that reinforcement from people you'd already had relationships with.
And people that worked here.
Right.
I mean, there was some people that were medics at where I work, and they were also teaching, part-time some on the side.
Absolutely.
And they could say, remember in class when we did this is, so I was seeing it, live, and I could read their reports. I could see how everybody words things their way and what they require and what you need.
What works, what doesn't, what can I steal from this person?
Absolutely.
And that was me, I just had to learn how to write ALS reports. I had been writing BLS reports that took a while to learn, and, again, it was good to have that prior experience. So, I absolutely get it. So what would you say to the medic student on their first day? So for us, first semester paramedic, EMS 150, what would you say to them walking into the room?
First day at 150, enjoy the semester. It's probably going to be the easiest one you got throughout.
The fun and game semester.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's learn to innovate. Let's learn to do IVs. Let's learn advanced assessment, and very little pathophys, very little drug profile memorization. That's later. We give you that false sense of hope. We hook you like a drug dealer. We give you that first hit's free. We hook you.
Right.
And then we say, look, it's going to be horrible from here on out for the next year and a half.
Yeah, I'd say definitely enjoy it. Learn all you can. You're going to be pissed off all the way through paramedic school. I think it's designed to make you that way. I was a complete ass the whole time through, I'm sure, according to my wife, and but I mean, I think it's designed to get you to a point where you're so frustrated you have to make that decision. Do you want it?
Absolutely.
Because like I said a while ago, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of decisions that's going to be on your shoulder. As much as we try to play it off in this industry, like, you got to want it and you got to take it seriously, even though we joke about it and make fun of certain things that other people don't understand.
I agree.
It's a responsibility that's a very, very big, and it needs to be taken seriously.
And not only are you the baby paramedic graduate who just graduated, you said it twice now. You said, I've been married for 15 years, and you talked about, my wife said I was an ass through school, and there's a huge time commitment for paramedic school. No matter where you go, whether it's a 15-month program, 2-year program like we have here for the degree, you're somebody who did it with I usually refer to it as a bunch of obligations. You have family obligations. You have a wife and kids. And again, it's really weird because you and I have never worked together at the county. I was only involved in a few classes during your paramedic school. I think I taught med math, maybe capnography, I remember. I don't remember all that. But I absolutely remember a ton of passing conversations that I had with you over at the county. Mm-hmm. And I remember our administrative assistant in the college who had related a story to me about you. And she said, Shawn hasn't seen his wife and kids since like Labor Day. It was like, or maybe it was like Memorial Day, and it was coming up on Labor Day. And it's like, he hasn't really seen them. He hasn't had a weekend off because it was, like I said, shouldn't have taken the full-time job.
Right.
So it would be school 2 to 3 days a week, clinic at least one of those days.
Absolutely.
At least because in the summer, you were doing, if it wasn't, that would be spring. So 150
3 days a week going to school, and the rest of the days I worked.
Right.
I'd go 3 days. I averaged the entire time I was in medic school, I averaged about 1 day a month off where I didn't have somewhere to
No obligation. No, I can actually stay at my house and see my family. Right.
1 day a month for the whole year.
Right.
And my wife and I mean, I spent a lot of FaceTime with my kids and my wife, missing soccer games.
Thank God for technology now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's definitely, I would go 3 days. I would pack, clothes, food, shower stuff, whatever I could pack in my vehicle and go off. And I'd say, I'll call you, I'll FaceTime you, I'll see you when I see you. And I'd come strolling in 3 days later and pass out. When I was at home, I wasn't daddy, husband, whatever. I was trying to.
Right.
But it was, hey, I need to pass out. I haven't slept but about 2 or 3 hours a night during this time period. And like you said, I mean, I was warned about it, but at the same time, I still got bills to pay. I still got mouths to feed.
And now it brings up another point. You're a little bit older than our normal 18-year-old, 19-year-old zero to hero paramedic. Okay. 34. Married for 15 years. Kids who are old enough to be what I would say self-sufficient, not babies. They know when you're not there.
Oh, absolutely.
They know when you're not there. You're missing out on stuff. How did you balance it? Like, what did you you said FaceTime and stuff.
Right.
But.
Yeah. FaceTime. I mean, if I had, I probably could have studied more while I was in school. I don't think you can ever study enough, but I sacrificed some of the studying time to try to make it to some events, the awards at school, the soccer games. Like, obviously there's no way you're going to make all of them, not even half of them. But I would go to there and I would, explain to them, look, Daddy's trying to get done with this school. And they understood, and they were very supportive of me during that time period.
That's good.
I mean, they knew I wasn't there, but they understood why. And I just kept reiterating that it's for a short time and the day will be here. Right. And I try to make up for that now.
Right.
Don't just lay out not to go, to their events and whatnot, but always make a present. Because, I mean, if I destroy my family because I'm never around, even after medic school,
right.
then, I mean, why do it at all,
Right. That's why I have a hard time with all the people who work 3 and 4 jobs and, I see it, and it's definitely on the paramedic student side. In the back of my head, it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy mentally. It's definitely unhealthy physically. And again, not as a selling point or anything ever, but our curriculum has a lot of extra hours built into it. We don't do the minimum that the state requires. We do well over it, and we put out a better product, in my opinion, obviously. And I've said it before, I don't graduate entry-level paramedics. I probably graduate a second-year paramedic who still has to get through their first year, but I've heard it from area employers. You guys put out a great product. And again, very validating, but again, at what cost? In the back of my head, it's, man, I pulled Shawn away from his family for 24 months. And sometimes it's kind of tough to think that, but again, lucky, good support system. Your wife, your kids understand, which is good. And again, some of these people, it's hard to be sympathetic when the paramedic student who's like, yeah, I have a car payment.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. You got to pay your cell phone bill. Your parents still pick up your insurance and they're paying your rent. So what are you complaining about again?
Right.
It's really difficult to, and again, like I've said it in the past, I that was me. I had no attachments. I had to pay to put gas in my car. I had to pay monthly rent and my cell phone bill, and food. But I lived with 4 other dudes. But within 2 years, I alienated myself from them because I was never around. If I wasn't at work, I was on a ride time. If I wasn't at a ride time, I was at a clinical. If I wasn't at a clinical, I was in school 2 to 3 days a week. And like I said, they would just stop asking after a while. Like, hey, you want to hang out? I'm like, I have to do paramedic stuff. Sorry.
Absolutely.
So I get it, and that's good. And you made it through it. I've met your family, and they're awesome. I met them at graduation. I thought they were super cool. So
I'm definitely dedicated to the cause. I'm dedicated to it. But I would tell my wife this: look, I'm dedicated to what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. But I can always get more. I can always get more money. I can't get more time.
Right.
So you got to spend it wisely.
Right.
And I decided that paramedic school was worth the sacrifice. My family supported me in that, went through it, and I'm happy with the outcome so far.
And I think a lot of the younger students without that worldly experience and extra responsibility, it's funny to watch them complain and be like, look, and this guy over here who's been away from his wife and kids for 3.5 months trying to get IV sticks and advanced assessments. Stop. It's really hard to be sympathetic to you. Just go. Go home. You can sleep in your car, which we've had. We've had plenty of students who come off of a shift. They sleep in their car. They show up to class for 0900. And we've had a few students who went on a break and didn't come back because they fell asleep somewhere in our building. And I
tried to take a nap in the parking lot when I was in medical school, walking to the car. I just laid down. I was like, man, I'm exhausted.
Right. And again, that's so unhealthy. It's not even funny. And that's as a student, and it carries over into our jobs, and that's something EMS has to work on.
Absolutely.
All right. So you pep them up first day of EMS 150. How about now? They're walking down, they're at pinning, or they're at graduation. What do you tell them? What's your free advice for them?
My free advice, two things that I can think of just off the top of my head. First thing that was told to me was, it's not your emergency. Don't make it your emergency. Do your job. Keep rationale. Keep a logical balance on what's going on. It's not your emergency. Don't make it your emergency. But treat it for what it is. It is somebody's emergency. And number two, don't be scared afraid to fail. You're gonna fail. You're gonna make mistakes. It's going to happen. If you can't understand that, maybe it's not for you. You're going to fail. Learn from it and push forward. Which is
you're absolutely right. So a lot of EMS people and public safety people will say up front, I'm a type A personality. I know a lot of non-type A personalities in EMS. But also part of that type A, I have command presence. The emergency stops when I walk in the door because I got this. But sometimes you don't got this.
Right.
And at the end of the call, you got to have that intrapersonal conversation, not interpersonal, not you and me. It's got to be me and me. And it's like, did I lose control of that? Or was there a better way? Or, man, that was definitely not how I should have approached that. The next time I'm faced with it, I would do X, Y, Z.
It's dangerous when you can't be honest with yourself
absolutely
about what's going on. You can't grow like that.
And you do watch those people grow, and it's poor. And they do. They're the ones who want to shift blame. They want to explain it away. They want to rationalize just to rationalize. And no matter, they know they did it wrong, but they're going to tell you why it wasn't wrong at the time and how great they are. And again, detrimental down the line, unfortunately. It does catch up. I've watched it catch up with people. And again, I think it's probably something we should be fostering in school a little bit. And I try and do it in lab with the structured debrief, but try and push that out to the preceptors and say, look, man, make them think after the call. Don't just be like, hey, Shawn, great job on that call. Get in the truck. It needs to be like, hey, I think you did really well on that call. Tell me what you think. And then it starts getting you into that rhythm of, well, if you put me on the spot, I would say, yeah, you said good job, but I think I could have done better here. Or, yeah, I thought I did really well on that assessment, but if I had to go back and do it again, I would have added this. Yeah. And then you watch the preceptor go, wow, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, but you're right. Let's try that on the next call, which is good because you both get something out of it.
That's what I did all the way through. All the way through medic school. I do it to this day.
Right.
And you can ask one person that absolutely I would do this back and forth. And it may even during the call, the questions off my partner is Alex Zongron. If you could talk to her, you could ask her right now. After every single call, whether the call went great, whether the call went piss poor and just turned into a shit show, we would discuss everything. What could we have done better? Let's find something we could have done better, something we didn't think, went exactly right, and how did it turn out?
Right. And so, and I speculate a lot that, and again, I use you as a perfect example, baby medic, but you're a worldly dude. All right. You've had life experiences. You didn't come into the job at 19 years old with like everything is puppy dogs and ice cream. And oh my God, the first time someone called me a bad name on a call, I didn't know people could. I'm a paramedic. You can't talk to me like that. And they shut down.
They called me an ambulance driver. The whole time I was thinking, like, look, dude, I've been called a lot worse by a lot higher class.
Right. I used to tell people that all the time. Hey, look, I've been called worse by better. Get in the truck.
Right. I mean, let's just move on.
Yeah.
We're better than that.
Yeah. Last time I checked, you said you had chest pain. Don't worry about what I'm doing over here. Let's go help you.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think again, you come into it more worldly, and you're able to self-assess, and you've had those experiences. You've had experiences. You've probably had failure in the past.
Absolutely.
And you grow from it, whether it's good or bad. You're absolutely exposed to it. So I see that as a very big difference between groups of students. So
I tell about why people are designed for this kind of work. I feel like I was designed to do this kind of work. Like, it just fits my person. And I think maybe that's why I love it. I've done jobs where I just, fast food jobs, or, whenever I was a teenager on, construction jobs. I mean, I've always been able to adapt to what whatever put food on the table, whatever I could make another buck doing. But I wasn't happy with what I was doing.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, I'm not happy all the time with what I'm doing now, but most of the time I am, and I love what I do.
I'm jealous of that.
Right?
I'm absolutely jealous of that. This is all I've ever done. All I've done is EMS. All I've ever done well. I mean, even there really hasn't been too much outside of EMS that I've ever done besides teaching, which is EMS related.
Right.
Cool.
You got to be happy, man. You got to. That's one thing that I've learned over the last 10 years probably is if you're going to spend all your time doing something, find something you actually like to do.
I do love the job.
Right.
I love the work.
Makes a difference.
I love the work.
Of course, you're going to get pissed off sometimes.
Why? You're human. It's human emotion. What's your best memory of school?
My best memory of school, aside from leaving, the growth, man, the friendships that were formed while going through school, just the growth. I love, learning something new that I can apply and use. Feeling the completion of that task, whatever it is, fixing somebody's breathing problem. You can see
see that turnaround.
You can see that turnaround. I mean, it obviously can go either way, but once you see it, the successful fruits of your labor, I guess.
Well, don't forget, because there's a little part of you that says, "I did that."
Right. And I mean, you can't get that fulfillment every day, but those times when you do get that fulfillment carry you through the bad times a lot, I feel like.
Right. And I would get that. I would have that conversation weekly with my wife, because I would run calls and they would all be low budget, routine. I would show up, we'd go to the hospital. I would come home and be like, ugh, all this high dollar medic school stuff. Can't get any of that 7%, man. I just want one. I mean, I don't want someone to have a STEMI, but I want to be there when they do.
Right.
I don't want someone to have a head-on car wreck on the highway, but I really want to be close when they do.
Absolutely.
And then when I, twice a year when I would run a bad trauma, because I couldn't buy them for whatever reason, it's just a white cloud trauma's medical detective guy. I would come home and be like, oh my God, we had this ass slinging trauma. It was awesome, blah, 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 blah. And I'd go be on and on about it. But yeah, you know what though? This was wrong and this was bad. And she's like, you're never happy. It's I run routine calls and I want to run high acuity. Come home, you run high acuity. Now you run too many high acuity. I was like, yeah, but I keep going back. I love the work.
Absolutely.
So again, people, they always say people complain because they want to make the place better. They want to make the job better. And I truly believe that. And again, everything you just said, you are the picture of adult learner. You wanted to learn a skill that you could use when you walked out of the classroom door, because it's like, man, that's great. The theory is awesome. I'll get that. I want to turn that breather around. I want to juice up that diabetic and, move on. So
right. Make a difference.
Absolutely. What's your worst memory?
Oh, man.
There's a laundry list, right?
Well, I mean, like I said, man, medic school's designed to make you mad, piss you off, I think. If not turn you into an alcoholic. I don't know. Maybe all the above. My worst memory, man, just being so exhausted and tired all the time.
Beat down.
If that feeling like, I listened to some of the other podcasts and I can agree with some of the things that were stated. And I was impressed with Rita's. Like, she inspires me.
I always think of that.
She's so great. Yeah. Like, I just want to add that in there. But just being tired and exhausted and feeling inadequate, because I don't think, there again, medic school gives you so much information. There's no way in the world you're going to grasp all of it.
Right.
And I'm like, if I can't grasp it all, I'm not going to be adequate to do what I need to do. I'm going to forget something when I need to remember something. I'm going to fail. And yes, you are going to fail, but you grab enough of that information to be, I feel like, a little better than what you have to be to start out. and the rest of it comes in time. So just that feeling of inadequacy and tired and down and like it's never going to happen and you're never going to get there.
Right, and just not understand. You think you understand a concept, and then maybe that test grade's not so good.
Absolutely.
You start questioning yourself, and you have a lot of self-doubt, or you go out on a ride time, and you're like, man, you walk into it, and you meet your preceptor, and you're like, dude, bring it on. My job tonight. Wow, I'm gonna do it. And then you get out there, and you're missing the IV. Your brain's working like way faster than your hands are, your eyes are, and you always get that one. I mean, I remember one time in school, somebody handed me I was like, guys, I'm gonna make you guys think I'm so awesome tonight, and they handed me an EKG strip, and I was like, it's AFib all day, and they're like, yeah, you're done. And I was like, well, afterwards, it was definitely not AFib. It was the most normal sinus rhythm ever with a patient who was really with no symptoms. And they're like, what did you say it for? I was like, I don't know. And they're like, so you're not thinking? I was like, I guess not. And they're like, well, paramedics need to think. And I was like, oh, all right, I'm crushed. I need to go study more, or I should maybe take a breath and count to 3 before I answer a question. And then learning experience. And then when I say fail, you failed the call. Like when you screwed up where I went to school, where you messed up the ECG, didn't care if you hit the IV or you knew what the diagnosis was. Oh, you missed what they would count as a lethal rhythm. Like everyone should be able to hit AFib from across the room. I was like, well, great. Highest I got on that call was 74. Done. Failed. What am I going to do? Now I got to make up for it.
You failed the battle, not the war.
Not the war, right.
Man, one of my preceptors, my FTO, whenever I was at EMT, told me after I got my medic, he said, everybody wants you to say, don't just sit there, do something. No. But he said, I want you to know something. He said, don't just do something, stand there.
Right. Somebody wrote an article with that.
I don't know. I don't know where he got it from, man, but it was crucial because like we had this severe breathing problem. I'm thinking, okay, well, I can throw some albuterol at it. I can throw some, I can throw, CPAP at it if I need to. I got solumeterol, mag sulfate, the whole gambit was, high flow, put an end-tidal nasal cannula on them and transport emerge. And then put the monitor on, and she's also in SVT. Right. Like, okay, well, that changes things just a little bit.
Right.
So you don't get that tunnel vision. And he's like, sometimes you got to just take a step back, assess everything that's going on, even when there's 30 people in the room, 10 firemen over here, and whoever's there, just take a step back and don't get zoned in.
Right.
There again, making it your emergency. You're getting so worked up about what's going on.
Absolutely.
It is serious. It is serious. You got to do something.
Right.
But take a second to think about what you're going to do.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I noticed that years into practice, and it was not until I left the field to come teach that it was cemented in my brain. When I started taking the students to the local emergency department, which was awesome because we got to treat the most high acuity patients, and I didn't have to carry them down 6 flights of stairs, and they came to me. I didn't have to go to them, and I was working in a well-lit area with all the equipment within arm's reach. And then I noticed that how the hospital staff acted. And there were patients that, like, I know that if I would have brought in, or I would have even said in the radio report, bad breather, or what I felt was a bad breather who wasn't being turned around quick enough with meds or CPAP or whatever, like I would call in, I'd be like, yeah, have respiratory standing by with a vent. Yeah, and we'd get there, and I'd look at the therapist because we're your friends, and I'd be like, unask yourself from that stool, man. I'll see you in room 2, and we're gonna tube this guy. If I would have had 5 more minutes, I'd have done it for you. And he'd be like, all right. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Get the box. We're doing it now. And he's like, yeah, okay. And you come in, you do your handoff. The doc comes in, therapist comes in, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We're going to go ahead and try a hour-long albuterol. I'm like, dude, I just gave him 3 albuterol. We need to tube this guy. He needs our side. I would have done it myself. I'm going to drive around the campus, and I'll go back and do it. And they're like, yeah, we're going to give him albuterol. Hour-long albuterol. Then they put him on BiPAP, and it turns him around. And I was like, well, but you should have RSI'd him. I came in here. My hair was on fire. Why aren't you doing anything? And then I was like, wow, we rush. We really rush. And it's in our name, Emergency Medical Services. And we're like, oh, bad breather, didn't turn around with CPAP. Tube. Done. Tube. Wait, maybe we should just step back, maybe albuterol's just, it's medicine. It's not magic. Let's give it a couple minutes. Let's see. And I'm watching this poor guy breathe hard for 45 minutes, but you know what? He's not going into respiratory arrest. He's not dying. I was like, wait. We rush. We are rushing. And I think we rush, and I think we miss stuff, and we miss out on being methodical, and maybe we're trying to help. I got to get the IV for the nurses, or I got to get this done before I get to the hospital. So.
I think that's why we rush. And like I said, I don't have 20 years experience or nothing like that. But I honestly believe the reason why sometimes we do rush is because we have seen that person go from how we find them to all of a sudden just crash like that, and you remember that, and you make an extreme out of every situation. Right. There's not a bad, worse.
If I get extreme. The line, he won't go into respiratory arrest.
It's like we take it to the extremes sometimes, and it makes us get in a hurry.
I agree. I agree.
Like you said, take a step back and look.
How important are mentors coming up, whether it's through school, through life, through that first year of practicing as a paramedic?
Having people to speak into your life is crucial, whether it's in EMS, whether it's just in your personal life, just how you're conducting yourself. You got to have people that are outside the situation that you trust to speak good things into your life. I think that's crucial. I haven't always had that. But I have been fortunate, like I said earlier, have great mentors that I can go to. I trust that give me great, solid advice in EMS.
Right.
I have friends that I trust to speak good things into my life. So I honestly believe that having somebody outside the situation speaking in is critical in this field.
Not necessarily your paramedic FTO or even.
Funny you say that. I actually didn't get an FTO right now. They always put me with strong medics right now, but I didn't get your generic titled FTO.
Right.
I've worked with some senior medics who they've been putting me with during this time period. People that have been doing it a while that have been able to help me out. But I think, like you said, a mentor, doesn't necessarily just have to be an FTO. It could be anybody who's...
Doesn't even need to be in EMS in the career field.
No, it doesn't have to be. No. Just somebody that you trust. And I don't even think a mentor should be your spouse. I don't think you can have that. I think you need somebody outside of the situation, outside of your life, as far as, outside of the situation, speaking in.
Right.
That will be very realistic with you and say, you know what, if you're screwing up, we'll be like, hey, look, you're screwing up.
Right.
You might want to think about this, because they care about you.
Right.
And they want to see you do better. I don't think you can grow leaps and bounds without that.
Right. Do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody you consider that?
I do. I think I have more than one,
okay.
Friends that, that I trust to speak into me.
That's good. That's real good. And do you think it's benefited you?
Absolutely.
Definitely in that first year?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Good. So that kind of will move into a couple other things. So for you, when did it all did it click, or has it clicked? And when I say that, I've talked before about having that EMS epiphany. Is some people get it, or they have it during maybe the last semester of school. For us, which is a prep semester for your national registry testing. Or some people it clicks for them on a like an ending ride time in a capstone, or even while they're walking down the aisle at graduation or pinning, or maybe other people in that first month or so, 6 months, 1 year, some people after a year. They just everything falls into place. I'm not saying they get comfortable, but things are like, man, this is it. I'm out. I'm doing it. I ran that call, and I was successful. I felt like I was successful. I felt like no one needed to hold my hand, and I understood everything that the patient said, and I was able to put 2 and 2 together, and I came up with a treatment plan.
I think there's actually 2 times that I don't know, I could probably define as it clicked with me. One of them was during AMLS card class. That class by far was the best class I feel like I had through medical school. I think it tied a lot of things together, gave you the physiology behind it, how everything's working together, how you go into your treatment assessments and treatments. It tied a lot of things together. So I felt like things started to click, not just, air goes in and out, blood goes round and round, any deviation from that. Obviously, we say that all the time.
Right.
But it really is, don't overthink it. It really is that, it really is that simple,
Right.
Keep an eye on your basics, to me. And that's when it clicked for me is AMLS. And then it reiterated that on my very first call, my very first day as an operating medic. Very first call. All right, this is your ALS call. We show up and this lady's having a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Had surgery earlier that day, was fine, walked over, sat on the couch, stroking. And I'm like, okay, let's get, muscle memory kicked in. Okay, well, let's get our pressure, let's get our BGL, let's do this, let's get a history, let's get our meds, blah, blah, the gambit. You're trying to do an assessment. She can't follow you. She's looking up to the left, stroking. All right, let's get her on the stretcher. Let's get her to the truck and get her to the hospital. It's within our window. It didn't realize really at the time until we got in the back of the truck, hey, this is your ALS call. This is your deal. Because I'm used to slamming the door, getting up there and being an ambulance driver.
Right.
What I mean?
Right. The responsibility stops at the back door.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is on me.
Right.
My partner said, you need anything else? I'm like, I'm good to go.
Right.
Slam the doors and off we went.
It's a lonely feeling.
It is. And then muscle memory takes over. That training you get in class. You start your IV, you maintain, monitor vitals, start training, do everything you have to do, and then tell them when you get to the ER. Give your report. And that was on point. I felt like when I walked away from that, and I can't say it for every call.
Right.
Obviously, there's pucker moments a lot these days, but for that call, I walked away from it after the hospital feeling like there's nothing that I felt like I would have changed.
Right.
Now, somebody else may have looked at it and said, this is one thing. The doctor asked me if I had a phone number for the family. I did not have a phone number for the family.
What family?
Right. I sure don't, sir, but they're in the waiting room.
Right.
So, and I guess that's the humbling part of it, because I thought the call was flawless. Like,
right.
I didn't miss anything. And then the doctor's like, why didn't you get a phone number for the family? And I'm like, you know what? I didn't.
There's really no answer I can give right now that does not sound wrong when I say it.
Exactly.
Right?
And I'm
no matter what I say.
Everything was perfect, but I didn't have that phone number. Yeah. That's the only thing I took away. But it clicked for me because I was like, at the end of the day, I managed that patient to the best of my ability and used my training. I was happy with it.
I'll polish it later.
Right.
I made it. I absolutely made it. And that's what it's about. It's about making it through that first call. That's good. Awesome. I call the first year a survival year. First year, I always tell you guys, Facebook every year, graduated, great. And I always tell you, good job, well done. I know where you work. You have your work cut out for you. Now the real learning starts. And it's the survival year. And I stole that from teaching. They talk about, if most people don't know, this is really, it's not really a second career. But I was when I came out of school, I was going to be a teacher. And I hated it, and I walked away from it. I didn't like being inside. I liked EMS a lot better. And they used to talk about that first year as a teacher is your survival year. It's because you're overwhelmed. There's 25 kids in a class. You're learning curriculum. You're doing a ton of work at home. And if you can make it through that first year, you can start developing yourself as your own teacher. And you can figure out what works, what doesn't. And you become you. You develop you. And there's a ton of parallels that I saw immediately through EMS, and I stole it. And it's a survival year. So you're in your survival year. You're in your survival couple months.
Right.
But you came in with a ton of experience. So what do you think of tell me about your survival year?
So far, the last couple months, like I said, I've continued to learn. I look at every medic that I work with, whether they're considered by the general consensus to be a great medic, a sharp medic, a smart medic, a horrible medic, a lazy medic, or whatever kind of medic they are. I feel like I can learn something from all of them.
Right.
Like I said, I've been fortunate enough to work with great medics, and I can take experience from that and say, look, this is what I want to do. I want to take something from this, and I can work with some of the folks that maybe aren't considered that great medic or that strong medic or whatever, and maybe I can see some things that maybe I don't want to do.
Right.
So I feel like I can take something away from everybody, and if throughout this survival year, I feel like it's going to, develop habits that's going to extend throughout the rest of my career. I definitely lean on, there's so many people that I work, so many strong, and you're well aware of this. There's so many strong medics that I work with. I can't say enough good stuff about a lot of them. The majority of them are phenomenal. And so I just try to stand close enough to them to some of that stuff to rub off on me.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I think you have a special case yourself because you don't have an assigned FTO, which again, the training and education guy side of me says, I would be failing you if I'm not giving you biweekly evaluations and closely monitoring your progress for 5 to 6 months. The educator realist side of me says, you know what? That's how I did it when I came up as an EMT. You weren't afforded one person to hold your hand for 6 months. And you got to experience this person, that person. This is how so-and-so writes a chart. Or, ooh, I like how she writes that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to add that into my repertoire now. Or, oh, hey, I used to do this when I would start a line, and I saw someone do this. I'm going to try that. You know what? That didn't work for me. I'm going to forget that. But somebody else, I'm going to do this. And you start building. You fill that tool. Out of school, just the very bottom of that toolbox is filled. Now, all of a sudden, you can start adding to it. And what works for you, I always say it's like telling a joke. Someone tells you a joke and you retell it, you remember the punchline, you remember the important parts, and then you might tweak it a little bit and make it your own when you retell it. It's the same thing in pre-hospital care. You learn the basic building blocks, you struggle through school, you pass your entry level. Now all of a sudden you start to build, and honestly that is that survival year. So I think you're probably more fortunate that you get to see who you want to be like, who you don't want to be like, what works for you, what works for other people might not work for you, what works for you might not work for other people. Yeah. And just having that variety of interaction. So a lot of people back in the day, we used to say the part-timers kind of had it really well because they would work with tons of different medics and different attitudes, and just you'd see them over a year just become their own person, and it was great. Sometimes it was awesome, and you'd be like, wow, where did you learn that? Oh, so-and-so should. Oh, hey, I bet you work with so-and-so. I know he does that.
Mm-hmm.
That's their signature, right? So.
And I mean, I may get an FTO after they hear this. I mean, I don't know. And like you said, though, I mean, I get to work with different people. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty straightforward though. Like if I have a question, I'm definitely going to ask.
Right.
If I need clarification, like I'm not too proud to just call for code 5. If it's so far out there that I'm so stumped that I'm on a block, I'll call for code 5. Right. That's what they're there for, man. Right. Come on out here and ride in with me. Even if you just sit there and just be like, I don't know, make me feel better about it. You know what I mean?
Handhold, there's shoulder rub, pep talk, all you need.
Every once in a while, I need my feet rubbed too. I'll return the favor one day.
Right.
Absolutely. But I mean, I don't have a problem. I'm comfortable in my skills. I'm not comfortable on every call yet, though. You know what I mean? There's still that fear factor.
How, so fear. I like talking about fear a lot. I think fear as a new medic, regardless of experience, keeps you on your toes. Mm-hmm. And it keeps you most of the time from making career-ending clinical errors or errors in clinical judgment. And I think that's good. And I love when people say, man, I was scared. I was terrified. Like the new medic, I was terrified on that call, or I was terrified on my first ride. I always ask people, so now you've been doing it for a while. And on the third service, the transfer side of it, you have prearranged trips. Somebody usually calls you on your cell phone or an old Alpha pager or whatever. But you came into local EMS. We didn't have tones anymore. So the radio just kind of alerts, or the MDT, the computer just bloop, bloop, and then all of a sudden you go on a call. So when we had tones, I used to ask people, be like, hey, when the tone goes off, did your stomach do the little flip-flop thing where you got really excited? And you're like, ooh, gunshot.
Right, absolutely.
Did it?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
how about when the computer alerts now? Does it do it?
Oh, man. I tell you, it's funny that you even said something about that, because on my ride time, I rode with another local service here, emergent service, not far from here. And whenever any status change in any of their units has like their own scene or at the hospital, anytime there's a change, their computers make the sound that our MCTs make once we have a call.
Right.
So I would hear that go off and I would jump up like, all right, time to go. Where are we going? And
Awesome.
they're like, no, that's not even us. That's a whole nother truck. They're at the hospital, And I'm like, dude, that's so frustrating. My anxiety's kicking in.
Was it really anxiety or was it excitement?
I think it's a little of both. Like, I mean, and I don't know if I would call it anxiety. Maybe it is just excitement. I mean,
You become hyper alert.
yeah,
right.
I mean, your senses kick in.
It's time to be a student now.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't. That's why I can't work nights because there's no way I could I can't take a nap or sleep as long as that radio is close because I'm always expecting to go off.
That's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That is exactly what I'm talking about with the tones. Because I remember as an explorer, we'd be sitting in sitting in our common area, and another truck would get a call, and I'd be up there like, "It's not us. Sit down." I was like, "But I want it to be us.
Right.
Let's go." And they're like, "It's not us. Sit down." I was like, "All right, great." And then I do it again. They're like, "That's not even us. It's the fire department. Sit down. Sit down. Calm down, buddy." And I would watch people do that as I got into the career. And it brings me joy to see people do that. Now, there's a really weird thing. There's a time that goes, for me, it went away.
Right.
And you think, well, maybe I'm really comfortable. And I've said it a lot before. Year 5 of ALS for me, I was bored to death. There wasn't a call you were going to excite me on. Oh, gunshot. Yeah. Like my probie's running down the hallway of the fire department and I'm wrapping my food. I'm like, we'll get to that because we're just going to go plug the hole. Trauma center's 4 minutes away. We're going to be great.
Right.
And it's not, I don't know that it didn't excite me, but it wasn't 16-year-old Chris the Explorer. Ooh, stub toe. Let's go. Get the cape out. Get in the ambulance. Let's go.
Well, I mean, we run. Sometimes it gets redundant. I mean, you're on your 7th, 8th call of the shift.
Yeah.
You haven't been able to make it out of the parking lot of the local hospital before you get popped with another one.
Calls holding.
You barely had time to pee. There's calls holding. There's always another call. There's always going to be the next thing. You have to find ways to keep it. Like I said, I enjoy it.
Right.
I enjoy being able to help people. I also, on the opposite coin of that, I get frustrated. We show up, somebody's got chest pain, they might be having a, MI or whatever. Let's get out there and see what's going on. We get out there and they just need their prescription filled.
Right.
Like that sometimes becomes not beyond frustrating. It becomes infuriating.
You start disliking patients.
Right. And so, but I've talked with other people before and say, how you react to a situation says more about you than it does about that person who definitely doesn't need an ambulance, who needs to go to their primary doctor, pay their doctor bill, get their regular prescription, and take them as prescribed.
Right.
We know that.
When that patient wrecks your day, that you're just like, this is a waste of my time. I can't believe I paid to learn all this, and why you're wasting our time out here when someone else needs it. It's just. And
then your very next call is a pediatric cardiac arrest.
That needed every ounce of your training. Right. Every ounce of your training and needed you to perform and to be not pissed off and jaded from that last guy. I absolutely get it.
Don't miss it by being pissed off.
Right. Something awesome happens and then again, and you're on the top of the world. Every call is awesome. And then it's that ebb and flow. And honestly, I personally think there's nothing wrong with that until it becomes a persistent problem that interferes with your daily life. Then we can talk compassion fatigue and burnout, and that's another show.
Well, there's some people that are salty and it's inspiring.
Right.
There's somebody on the evening shift that follows ours that always makes, or not so much anymore, but was making some Facebook posts that were salty. I'm inspired by that. I love this guy. He's an older guy, been doing it for a while.
Right.
I haven't actually even had a chance to work with him. I keep telling him I'm going to because I tell him his negativity is inspiring for me.
Right.
Like I don't look at it even that he's even being negative or trying to put anything down. He's trying to motivate the troops, and I've told him that. And he's got my support, and
I've worked with that guy.
Right.
He's awesome.
Rock star. Right. I hear the stories. I'm kind of jealous, but I'm he can listen to this and try to guess who it is.
He's really weird because he tells a lot of stories that we did together that I don't remember, but evidently had a really big impact on him. And I was like, I don't remember that, but that definitely sounds like something I would have done.
Right.
No,
maybe that'd be that way with me. I read the stories and I'm like, you remember this time when this happened? And
one way or another, again, as long as you draw something from it, you're going to grow. You'll grow. I debate asking this question because I don't want the negative connotation on it. Mm-hmm. Would you say EMS as a whole has changed you? And I'm not saying Shawn, the new paramedic. I'm saying Shawn, who started EMS as the ambulance driver, who progressed up over the last 7 or 8 years.
Oh, I think it's taught me a lot of things. Not just good, bad. I mean, both. I mean, I feel like EMS, when you care about something that's going to impact you, I care about this field. I enjoy this field. I feel like EMS has made me a more reflective person in a way. I reflect on the things that I've seen,
right?
But at the same time, it's also taught me to balance things, because you have to have a balance of the good, the bad, the time off,
right?
Don't take things for granted, because not just that, but I see situations in EMS. Like you walk into this house, it's totally different. The situation and family set up, even as far as the cleanliness of the house, whatever it is, you see so much and you experience that,
right?
And so, yeah, I feel like it probably has changed me. I would like to think for the better.
That's how I approach it too.
I try to take, but that's me though. I try to make myself better and grow from the things that I see, versus letting it affect me to where I'm, just take all the negativity, because there's so much of that out there.
Absolutely. And we see a lot of it.
Absolutely.
On both sides, on the EMS provider side and the patient side.
Yeah. If I want to throw a pity party, and I mean, I don't know, maybe that's where the question, if I want to throw a pity party and feel like, EMS has made me a more nervous or, scarred me. I mean, there's always something you're going to be able to find to use. And I'm not degrading that at all. I mean, there's people that have seen things in EMS and in the military, whatever the case may be, that they have to work through.
Right.
I have to work through it just the same. It's just how you do that.
And that's why I debate the question, because I don't want people to think like, are you asking if I have PTSD?
No, absolutely.
I'm not going to admit it.
Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, use things for positive. Use it to
that's
push
me
you
too.
forward.
That's absolutely. It's absolutely. We walk in, we see, again, you're non-judgmental. You walk into a house and you're like, man, I have got it. If you're thinking like, man, I wish I had a bigger house, a better car, blah, 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 and you walk into someone who's a lot less fortunate to you in a horrible situation, and you're like, you know what? I don't have it that bad.
Right.
I got a roof over my head. I got food on the table. I get a great family support structure. Maybe it is not as bad as I thought. And you know what? Let's try and help this person out here too.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I mean, I think EMS changes you. It's a servant type job. And I think you said earlier, a lot of people are built for it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, when you said that, it caused me to think, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm built. I don't know if I was built for it. Unfortunately for me, it was like a lot of people, it was a fallback job. I just happened to get into it and be good at it. I don't know if I liked it. I just was good at it. And then when other things in education didn't work out, I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good at that. And that pays money, which pays bills.
Right.
I'm going to go do that. And it just kind of...
It takes all kinds.
It kind of took off, and I was like, wow, this really... And people have that epiphany. Like, this is really what I was meant to do. And then you find out, like, again, a lot of people who know me, again, the word abrasive comes up back in the day. But I do. I like to help people. I do. It's cliched, but I like helping people.
Absolutely. Even the ones that piss you off,
I like helping them.
Happy.
Yeah, I like helping them. I like helping people when they're sick. So what's next for you? Where's EMS going to take? Where do you want to take EMS, and where do you think EMS is going to take you?
Oh man, I'm really enjoying it right now. Just trying to, like you said, I haven't been doing it long. I'm trying to enjoy it, learn, grow. Obviously, continue my education. I don't know if that is I've looked at already into maybe getting a bachelor's in emergency management, or my brother's been telling me about going to PA school. He's like, you need to do it. And so, I mean, I don't know that I'd be happy in that setting, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I don't know if I'll last 30 years doing this. I don't know. I mean, good grace. I don't know. Some people have. Some of the guys working with us now are, in their 60s. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's possible. I don't know. We'll see.
That's good.
Just enjoying myself, trying to learn how to learn, form those friendships, and do good.
In a little while, you'll be teaching people.
Right.
They'll be riding with you going, what can you show me?
Show them my work.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Any other thoughts? Nothing burning?
No, man. So far, so good. I appreciate you having me on. And
I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yeah,
this is absolutely... I'll say it for every one of them, but like, oh, this is my favorite episode now.
Yeah.
But it's good to have that fresh perspective. And you're a new medic. You're not new to EMS.
Right.
So it's good to, you're not new to the system up here, which is awesome. And it's good to get that no BS assessment.
Right.
So, and again, worldly adult learner. So it's a really cool. In fact, I would also think that, not to put words in your mouth, but it was probably difficult for you to sit in that classroom of younger high school graduates, 0 to hero, entitled generation.
Yeah.
And you're the adult learner with wife, kids, and it's like, let's get this done so I can get out there and start earning and do this and do that on top of all the other stuff. So.
Definitely was. And my group was, our ambulance group name was the Old Timers because it was the 3 oldest ones in the bunch.
Right.
And, and I had a great group, TJ and Brandy. We had a great group, the Old Timers, and we were the only ones that were married with kids and whatnot. And, we just kind of stuck to, we would always talk about the whippersnappers and, how tough they must have it. And like I said, this is medic school is designed, I think, to make you mad at stuff. And everybody in my medic class was probably like, that guy was such a jerk.
Man, I don't know that I designed it that way, but it just kind of happens.
Right. I mean, you have fun too. You grow and learn. And I mean, it's there for a purpose. And we had some good times and fun too. I mean, you got to make everybody think it's horrible. And in a lot of ways it can be. It is what you make out of it.
Because it feels better at the end when you feel like you've overcome it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my God.
And you think you want people to relate to you, and everybody's like, look, they would tell me, I can hear Helms now, you ain't the first one to go through it. Stop posting about it on Facebook, And I'm like, you're absolutely right, but you're going to have to hear me whine and bitch and moan and complain about it until I get out of it.
Right, because it keeps me going back.
Right,
so
exactly.
We didn't have Facebook when I went to paramedic school.
We
just complained to each other.
Right.
Yeah, we just complained to each other or anybody else who would listen.
Right, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sitting down.
Absolutely.
I loved hearing all that stuff, man. It's good. And I really do. I think a lot of people, if they're real about it, they can draw some parallels to their experience. And again, if you're a student listening to this and you're getting through paramedic school, this is the motivating guy right here. Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.